Okay, it's 1 o'clock and there are a few of us here. Well, let's get started. Matt, you talked about, oh, I just dropped my paper. Okay, so there are a couple of things we want to discuss. We want to discuss further the discussion that we had previously. We also wanted to discuss having a networking event, correct, Doug? And I personally would like more information on pilots and Cdbgs. So I'm gonna turn it over to Matt. I'm chickening out.
Well, I will say that that pilots and CDBG are gonna end up right in this wheelhouse of if we stay on the course we've discussed. So at our last committee or task force meeting, we tried to zero in on a particular segment of the market. Where do we want to start? And with the idea that we'll put the lion's share of our effort into that segment, but then understanding that we're going to ripple out a bit as well, and kind of treat that market segment as a center point from which we expand as we start to get some traction. So what we encouraged folks to think about at the last meeting was, hey, hey Carrie, let's think about this from a standpoint of household income. So which household incomes were we trying to support? At that time, I'd run a calculation with the group using some numbers that I really did just do back of the envelope stuff, right? We haven't gotten the MRB group market team involved at this point. Wanted to get a little bit further down the road before we tap that resource. So what I did was called Lions Bank, asked what the Lions Bank CSR makes, the customer service manager, if you will, the person you see on the floor at the desk when you walk in. Spoke to or did some jobs.com searches in Canandaigua to see what a production line worker at Pactiv makes. And with this idea that we were kind of floating around this workforce housing concept. So what's workforce housing in Canandaigua? And then we take that and we extrapolate it. So just as a refresher, those jobs that I just referenced make somewhere between $17 and $22 an hour. So we kind of took 20 as the target, $20 an hour as a jumping off point for our analysis. $20 an hour times 2,080 hours in a year. If you're a full-time employee, that's $40,000 a year. The federal government considers you to be not burdened by housing costs if you expend less than 30% of your income on housing annually. So 30% of $40,000 a year is about $12,000. So that takes us to $1,000 a month in total housing costs. But then you have to discount that further, right? Because we're talking about total housing costs contemplates insurance, utilities, the cost of ownership, right? So we discounted that by 30% and said, all right, we're really talking about $700 a month for workforce housing, right? And I suggested then, well, maybe we can turn the MRB group market team loose and they can do an analysis to see how many units are in the pipeline at $700. And the committee here assured me I did not need any economists to track that down, that in the town of Canandaigua, there are little to zero homes available at a cost of $700 per month, right?
Right.
And so we looked at that number. It turns out that The median household income in Canandaigua was a bit higher than that. So we got some good feedback from Nash and from others to say, hey, really, we are, that workforce housing is an interesting conversation. If the town's going to put some muscle behind this, maybe the town might even want to set its sights a little differently, and think about supporting some people who are in a little bit deeper need than a household with 2 full-time employed folks. And so Nash's suggestion, I believe, was that we start looking at 50% of area median income as the target. And so that does take us to another place, but not that far. And I apologize, I can get that area median income number pulled up here just in a moment, but we don't need the number necessarily, because the tool is the same no matter what that number really is. At 50% of median income, we got a couple of tools in the toolkit that we'll make use of. And so I wanted to, I think, Sarah, can you let me share my screen?
Yep, just a second. Okay, you should be able to.
Okay. I wanted to pull up. This trusty tool that tells us, how the town can get involved, right? We are at 50% of median income. We're probably talking about subsidizing owners, and this would be the owner of the unit. Our 50% of median income folks are likely going to be renters. So we're subsidizing the development of new units. And in that case, we would be looking to subsidize the owner. So ways that the town can get involved in that is certainly advocacy. We want the town board to be on board with the concept of attracting development in that realm, and then the town board needs to advocate to its regional partners, like the Regional Economic Development Council, local legislators, those folks. So I think that's a piece of low-hanging fruit there, that we should just right away communicate to the town board that this is the market segment we're after, and that we'd appreciate your advocacy, the town board's advocacy, for development of these units. Zoning, I believe, and Doug can tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the town's zoning infrastructure is built just fine for this, particularly in Uptown, but certainly other places around the community. In Uptown, you've got the density. What we need from zoning in this case is density. That's what's going to make these units affordable, is the ability to create lots of them in small places. And Uptown is built well for that, but the town also has a PUD ordinance, which allows for developers to get creative about mixed-use development in the town. And Doug, do you have something?
Well, I guess I would just say on that, Uptown, as you said, is well positioned for it. If we were talking about other areas of the town, it might not be positioned as well, because in addition to the zoning, we spent a lot of time doing the infrastructure planning and development for Uptown, which is all in place. That's not necessarily in place in other areas of the town. So again, if the group is focused as Uptown, great, let's go at it. If it's another area of the town, there might be still work to do.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't want to dominate this conversation. I'll kind of just lay this stuff out there, and then we can dig into it. But the best path, or the most expeditious path, would be to start where all of this stuff is already in place, right? That's a much lighter lift to say the zoning's right, the infrastructure's right, the location's right, and that means we can actually start having conversations with developers.
But Matt, can I
Sure.
intercede here for a minute.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't limit us from encouraging developers of new market price housing units and homes to set aside some of their property for affordable housing.
Yeah, yep. And so one of the development regulations that's out there, I don't think the town, Doug, does the town have an incentive zoning program?
So we have incentive zoning. We have an incentive zoning section of our code where you could actually petition to rezone the property to incentive zoning, and then there are very specific parameters that have to be spelled out for the residents of the town and what they would be getting for it. That might be a heavier lift to get somebody who's trying to do affordable housing to go that route based on our version of that.
Mm-hmm. So that's something to tinker with, right? Or to think about. The for those of you out there who don't know what it is, incentive zoning is we give you the ability to do something you want to do in exchange for something that benefits the town. In this case, we would suggest, we grant you some additional density if you agree to make X number of those units perpetually available to folks at 50% of area median income, right? So that's one of the development regulations things that you can look at. I didn't list it here, but Karen just referenced pilots. The state code has a tax exemption section carved out for affordable housing. Towns can grant incentives, tax abatement to affordable housing projects. We're actually working on this in the city of Canandaigua right now. We've got a developer who's interested in taking advantage of that. And so we're helping them work through that. That's something that the town board would need to approve. And so again, back to getting the town board in alignment with what your recommendations are. And then grant application support. And up top there, we talk about housing tax credit advocacy. These are things that the town board can do. The town board can support, write letters of support for tax credit financed projects. They can authorize Doug and his team to write community development block grant applications, which will fund affordable housing initiatives, affordable housing projects. And those can be quite substantial. Ryan Wallace, the grant program that he works in, comes from NYSERDA, and NYSERDA, the program he's working inside of, requires that X% of all developed units go to 50% AMI, 50% of area median income. So absolutely grants, particularly CDBG, but this NYSERDA program's neat too. But CDBG and there's a couple of other state housing grants out there that the town could support.
So Matt, I have a question regarding the CDBG money that I was going to be asking. Do we get it in Canandaigua? Have we applied for anything that's coming? I don't even know what the time, what their annual renewal time frame is. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. In New York, the Community Development Block Grant Program is wrapped in with the what they call the consolidated funding application round.
Right.
And that is typically announced in May, due in July. The grant round is announced in May. Applications are due in July, and then the funding announcements come out in December. So, so if we started our conversations now, we'd be in really great shape to maybe to support a developer with those. As a matter of course, Canandaigua, I don't think, Doug, Canandaigua does not just get a standing allocation of CDBG funds. We'd have to make application for those.
I see. Okay. And do Can you also use CBD funds to convert or renovate properties that are really not at code for people to be renting? Maybe incentivize landlords to fix them up, or give them money to fix them up in agreement for, renting it to someone who is at 50% of the AMI?
Absolutely. And at 50%, you're going to be very competitive. You get the lower the income threshold you serve, the more points you get from a community development block grant perspective. So I think the minimum that you, or the maximum, depending on how you look at it, they have to be made available at 80%. They're not going to fund anything that's above 80%. And so 50% would be pretty attractive to the state.
Okay.
The pilot program, the affordable housing pilot program, is interesting because the abatement schedule is completely at the discretion of the town board. They could give 100% abatement for 100 years if that's what they wanted to do. Now, in Canandaigua, because of your sound professional management, taxes aren't at least town taxes aren't an issue, but the abatement will get at the school tax and the county tax as well.
So Matt, with that abatement, you said the town board has total discretion, but is it their discretion on the school and county tax as well, or only for, do you have to go to all three entities? How does that?
No, it actually attacks it at the assessment. So your taxable assessed value is changed. So the school district only applies its rate to your taxable assessed value. So as a matter of course, you might want to go out and make friends with the school district and the county, but it's not required.
But if I could just piggyback, so the school district, we've done a couple of them in the town of Canandaigua. As a matter of fact, a couple of the projects in Uptown do have them. The school district weighs in on that, and that is a heavy influence in terms of the decision, the political decision. And so if the school board comes out in opposition, which traditionally they are not huge fans of pilots in Canandaigua, then that is a factor in that decision.
What's been their hesitation?
The loss of the tax roll, essentially. Yeah.
And the sales pitch there, if you're looking for one, is they didn't have this revenue to begin with. If it's a new project, we're not rolling anything back. We're generating some new revenue. Now, the challenge, of course, for a school district, the way a school district looks at an affordable housing pilot versus like a senior housing or a mixed use pilot, where you're going to have some market rate, 1-bedroom apartments over boutique storefronts, is those don't typically generate students, right? But an affordable housing complex is far more likely to generate students to the district.
Well, and the other thing that happens with those quite frequently, and including the two projects where we just did them in Uptown within the last half dozen years, and Matt mentioned the town tax rate's $1.03, which is relatively nothing for a lot of this. But what the developers, and in terms of the financing from the state and even involving CDBG, they're looking for some stability in terms of the taxable value or the tax for the ongoing 15, 20 years. So in our cases where we had essentially the projects were 90 to 100% of the overall assessment and what it would have been anyway, but it gave them that stability so that they didn't have to worry about huge swings.
Yeah, I mean, I remember at Pinnacle North when that first got developed, they they did a pilot that was based on percentage of assessed value, some X percent of assessed value. And the following year, the city got a new assessor, and the new assessor came in and really bumped the assessment to the point where Pinnacle North went back to the county, got new pilot terms, as Doug describes, which was just here's the amount you will pay each year. And the affordable housing pilot would allow the town to engage in that as well, and that might be more palatable to school district.
And I think the other information we share with the school district too is that children that are in a sustainable housing situation are more likely to attend school on a regular basis. It'll
Yeah.
increase their attendance, and it's better for the students if they're in a stable housing instead of jumping from couch to couch or even moving every 6 months or every year. So I think we also need to lean in on the positivity that this will have on the students.
That's a great point. 100%. So I guess, Karen, you look for some head nods from the team that this is, this 50% mark is where they want to spend their time.
I've gotten that idea from the team that it is a legitimate place to start. My question, I have a question for Doug first, and then you can have it, Sarah. When do you anticipate we need to go to the town board for some advocacy, for some support, et cetera?
Well, it depends on when you're looking to try to institute a program, to be honest. It's,
Okay,
you know.
so we should wait till we actually have a plan in place, a step-by-step plan in place before we go to them.
I would say at least an outline, even if you don't have all the details, at least to be able to present an outline of a concept and then let them know what you'd be looking for, unless you're looking just for some initial feedback on whether or not they would support the path that you're going on. So I would turn that back, I guess, to you, Karen, in the group, and in terms of what it is that you're looking for.
Matt, what are we looking for?
Well, you want to be, so I think, in a few moments, Doug will overview an idea he has about starting to get some of these investors and these property owners and operators in the same room. There's no point in doing that if the town's going to say, no, we're not giving pilots. We're not going to bend on zoning or support any kind of development regulation modifications at 50%. We're at 80%. And at least one town board member who had joined us previously wanted us focusing on ownership versus rental. And so, I just think it would be maybe a report out. Hey, thanks so much for letting us convene. We've been doing some analysis and some due diligence, and the steps we'd like to take next are to facilitate development of some units at 50% of AMI, and then just see if they chase you out of the room or hug you, right?
So I can get a clearer understanding. If we're going after the CDBG grant applicant, who would be the applicant? Is that the town?
Yeah, the town would.
And they would end up administering everything. Say a developer wants to come and talk to Doug. I mean, that pretty much how it would work.
Yep.
Okay.
But Matt, right, there's flexibility in that. So I know that, we've got a developer who is working for a project right now on Parkside Drive that is going to be affordable housing. It's my understanding that they're going to be making the application to CDBG. I think it depends project by project, right?
I think so. And there's certain eligible entities.
Right. Correct.
The town is an eligible entity, a nonprofit would be an eligible entity. And I I'm trying to think of the name of what they call this, but it's effectively, a corporation who's chartered to create affordable housing would be another way.
Right. And what we've run into in the past a couple of different times now is you may have a large developer that has multiple divisions of their corporation or different names but they're all
LLCs,
linked.
yeah.
Right. Exactly. And then they may have that ability.
Now, Matt, when our county board does a CDBG, there's an allotment to have a manager, to hire a manager for that. Is that same thing true for developers and for any other entities that apply?
Yep. So in a lot of cases, so the county as the example, and we're working with the town of Geneva on an economic development project. The town was the applicant. The company is the subrecipient, and then out of the grant. So the grant 750,000. The town just skims a piece off the top to manage the grant, to administer the grant.
So, Doug, you suggested a networking event for developers and landowners, and I would imagine we're focusing on the uptown area, and I would imagine also some of the business owners in that area to investigate, to look into the possibility of affordable housing in the area and how it would be taken and how we would go about it. And what are your thoughts?
Sure. And thanks for continuing to chair this, Karen, and moving this forward. I think that I hear different things from some of the landowners, right? So you've got some landowners that they're just looking to cash out, and they want as much money as they can for their piece of property, right? And so you certainly have those group of individuals, and then you have some landowners who they would like to be involved in a larger project, and maybe they include their land as part of an equity stake in a venture with maybe a developer or some other combination of different things to be able to advance something like affordable housing, or something that maybe is market that also has affordable housing component associated with it, and a variety of things. And then we have we have the ongoing conversation that we've had here just here the last 10-15 minutes relative to maybe where some of the political folks are and those types of things. And I guess my thought was, instead of kind of going back and forth, trying to get everybody together, maybe that we invite the landowners, some of the developers, because I think that there's a real need to connect some of those, but we also invite some of these decision makers. We invite the board members, maybe we invite a representative from the school district and some folks from the county, so that everybody can be in the room together, or hybrid or by Zoom or whatever, and hear the same messaging. Because I think one of the things that I've heard even over the last couple of months is some of the potential projects may not need pilots and stuff to be able to advance and move forward. So we need to kind of understand what the needs are from some of the developers. Now, Matt's talking about, I think, a much different situation when you're talking about a 50% AMI, right? They're probably going to need something in order to make it financially feasible to make it work. But if it's something more like what you're talking about, Karen, where it's a mixed use project, imagine a 4-story building that's got some commercial or flex space on the first floor that then has some market rate housing in it that also has some affordable housing in it. They may not need the same level of tax credit or support that maybe a full-blown affordable housing project might need, right? So I think we've got a combination of a variety of different things happening in Uptown. And I know Matt and I have met with some of the different landowners and developers, and they've really, I think, so far enjoyed interacting with one another and getting to know one another. And I think there's an opportunity, even from a conversation I just had this morning and a conversation I had yesterday with a different landowner, to really kind of understand like some of these things, like for instance, the land and the specific parcel that maybe the person just wants to cash it out and sell it versus the person that wants to be involved in a project and start to kind of bring all of those things to the table. So that's why I suggested some sort of, whether it's Zoom or in person, but some sort of opportunity to kind of have a dialogue with everybody.
I think something like that would be better off in person, because you can get a real feel for a person when they're right in front of you, rather than on Zoom. But so should we aim at doing that excuse me, during the winter, or do we have to go further out?
Yeah, well, great question. And I think part of that, truthfully, is what's going on with the COVID situation. I mean, right now we're trying to encourage people again to consider doing things by Zoom and remotely after we've seen actually a spike in positive cases, even in our town hall family, our town employee family. So I think it depends on a variety of different things going on. But maybe one of the things that we could even think about is planning something along these lines, and maybe it's a series, but maybe even doing it in Uptown, maybe even utilizing some of the parks or some of the facilities that we have in Uptown to host some of these types of things. Maybe if the weather's nice, we can do something outside, or maybe if it's during the winter months, we talk to the school and we use the school bus garage, and maybe that's an excuse that we use to get the school, a representative of the school to the table or something, so there's a variety of different things I think that we need to think about in terms of planning something.
And I agree with you that Uptown is the place to have it. And I was thinking of if there's any empty spots on the Parkside units there, perhaps we could use one of those, something like that. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to go to the town board and get some more guidance from them on this. And I was thinking, I know there's a meeting Monday night, and I'll be there, but I'm not going to do anything then. But I was thinking of the next meeting in January, going to them with with an idea for a networking event and bring up the 50% thing. But in my mind, I see just exactly what you described. I see lower level small businesses, stores, maybe a restaurant, coffee shop, with some market rate housing and some affordable housing together. So do we agree on that? I mean, asking you, all of you.
I mean, that's what Conifer has been building, around the community, is exactly those kinds of projects. We're still in conversation with builders for Family's Promise, because we don't want to own the building, but we want to be able to have units available for people that are at that 50% AMI, to see if they can designate a number of units that we would have available. So
so it's also important that our nonprofit members attend this networking event, because you have input into this whole process.
right.
And honestly, I am a firm believer that some sort of case management is necessary when you get into the 50% range.
Yeah, we were planning on having a case manager right in the building, and have an office and, meet with people. I mean, it really is supportive housing, basically.
It is. And the interesting thing is, somebody sent me an article, Matt, I don't know if it was you, about market rate housing bringing down the rents in other housing. And it was really interesting, and it really brought to light that it's important to have a mixture, because you just get yourself into trouble if you have one or the other.
And back to one of Carrie's earlier points, that you get some stability and
Exactly.
and some cross pollination when you have mixed income buildings, mixed income blocks.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I-
don't want a concentration of low income, people, then you get the projects,
But by using that and using that in a presentation, I think we're more likely to get the support of the town board than going in there and saying, well, we're going to build a housing unit for the 50% group. I'm trying to figure out a way to get their support and get it easily.
I just wanted to add one thing. I'm a strong proponent of any solution that creates a hyper concentration of poverty is not a solution. It's just a different problem. And then secondarily, outside of case management, what about something that was like really directly supportive, right? So like, what about once monthly help a house cleaning or something like that, like real tangible services that are provided and or taught, right? Just an idea.
And I've heard that idea before when I went to the Wayne County presentation. One of the apartment complexes there brought that idea up, and I agree with. I think that could possibly work. So, looking to the rest of you, what do you think? Nash, you brought up the 50% thing.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, I think 60% was the number I was working with, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I think that this is a good starting place, and it would be good, to Doug's point, to get a pulse on where the town board is at this point in supporting this direction. So I think bringing something forward in January, at least as a concept, to get some feedback on and make sure that we're not going too far down this road and then are just not going to have the support we need. Because I do know that there were several conversations about homeownership early on, and obviously Habitat is a strong proponent of homeownership, and there may be opportunities for us to partner with a builder that has greater capacity to build than we do, but we can throw some of our supports behind it to make affordable homeownership in that 50 to 60% AMI range as well. But I think rental housing and all the things that we're talking about are important. One of the questions I had for Doug and maybe Matt as well, but there's certainly a lot of interest in Uptown, and it's the hot topic right now on a lot of fronts, not just affordable housing. And so just wanted to gauge from you guys the sense of urgency in terms of trying to get something in place so that as plans move forward and projects get proposed, that we're ultimately not too late to stir up the kind of interest that we're aiming for here.
I think that's a great point. If we can start to stir the pot, and I mean the whole area, the city included, there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. It's almost like people are making stuff up. I own property downtown, so I get to hear it, but getting together, I think with the developers, as we were talking about earlier, in a networking fashion, I'm a proponent of in-person meetings. I think that would be a great start, to be able to carry this forward.
Matt and I both serve, Matt serves as our executive director, and I'm one of our representatives on our board of directors for our local development corporation, which is a joint project between the town, the city of Canandaigua, and the Canandaigua Chamber of Commerce. And, we'll have, with the change of the year and the new year coming in, the town board's going to change. There's going to be a different makeup. There's going to be different individuals on the board. The same for our LDC board. And I believe there might be some new faces on city council also. So, even including our LDC, for instance, and Matt certainly brings that information back and forth a lot between the LDC and the and your group in terms of kind of what's going on. But even having some of those members in the room might be advantageous because that reaches over into the city. I know I had a conversation today, and that's one of the things that I think that I find very different within this last year, really, is there's many different times where I'm talking to a developer about something, and we may transition the conversation from the town to the city or vice versa. And I know the city manager is doing that now too. And a lot of that is due to our LDC and the way that we're able to really kind of understand what's going on in both municipalities and what the key drivers are and kind of what's going on and maybe what opportunities exist. Going back to your question, Nash, about the Uptown area, yes, there's a tremendous amount of interest in Uptown. Uptown is, in all, it's just over 1,000 acres is the area that we've defined as Uptown. And when you talk about you can build 80% occupancy or 80% lot coverage on those 1,100 or those 1,100 acres plus or minus. I mean, that there's a tremendous, and go up 4 stories, right? There's a tremendous opportunity there. A lot of what the main interest is right now is these mixed type use facilities. However, there are starting to be more and more conversations with developers that I know of 2 developers right now independently that are talking to some of our landowners about a housing only related build that does not include mixed use. It does not include commercial, predominantly apartments. And so I think that's probably what we're going to run into, a spattering of those types of different things as we continue to look at Uptown, where you'll have more of the mixed use in some key areas, and then more of even within a building, and then maybe more centered on other areas on something specific. But we'll just kind of have to, I think, work through that. But I'm hoping that those are the types of things that maybe we can get out of a joint meeting where we can kind of have all that together.
So,
Yeah, Sarah, I think we're getting a lot of static coming from
yeah,
your
I was,
room. So
yeah, I heard it too. Okay, so I know it's time to take something to the town board. And this is not the month to do that. We need to wait till the new members are on the town board and are kind of acclimated. But Matt, can we put something, can you help me put something together in a step-by-step type of format?
Sure, I'm happy to just draft a memo
Okay,
and circulate it. Let people provide comment, and then Doug, or what's the submittal date for the regular
Well,
meeting?
so that's a little bit of a challenge because the January is the organizational meeting. So the submittal date would actually be December 31st for that January 10th organizational meeting. We'll have a brief meeting on January 31st. It's traditionally to pay bills, and then after that, we're gonna all love our board and spend Valentine's Day, February 14th together. So we could all just kind of come and love everybody together. So.
okay, so so should we have something by December 31st for the January meeting, or no? Is it not necessary?
Well, you could if you officially want something on the agenda, but I guess what I was thinking is, Karen, you might want to just do whether it's a report, maybe even just speak, or even a presentation you could do without having a resolution per se on the agenda. And then that way there could just be a light conversation, and maybe you might get some initial feedback. I think one of the things, that you can
privilege of the floor. Can I do that in a privilege of the floor?
Sure, or even we could schedule a presentation for that January 14th, or I'm sorry, January 10th, and we don't need something ahead of time on that. The one thing I guess that I would just, as Karen, you and Matt kind of work on it, I think let's be very clear and transparent about the pilot piece, because I'm not sure all of the board members understand that, and I think that that's going to be an educational component.
I agree. I think we can do it as part of a kind of surreptitiously as part of a list of supportive type programs. And we don't have to go into detail about it. I absolutely agree about the pilot. The other thing I wanted to ask the group is I have Senator Helming lined up for our meeting in January. And I had mentioned to her office I would send her a list of of questions that the group might have. And I don't have to hear them now, but you all have my email address. If you could just send them on to me, I will forward them to her. But I want to focus on programs that the state has that the town can take advantage of, if any.
Matt,
So I'm hearing that there is another rental subsidy program that's going to be introduced at the state. Does anybody know more about that? No.
I heard that, I just kind of heard through the grapevine that there was something coming, but there may be ties to the federal associated with that. And I also heard just last night that the federal portion is getting, basically, they're still trying to figure out, they don't have the votes to get it through yet, so they're still working on that. So some of this stuff may just have to kind of work its way through here too.
Okay. All right, so if you do have any questions or just thoughts, I appreciate hearing them, and I'm at my computer a lot, so I can I can make note of them ahead of time. Do we have anything else that we want to go over? Anybody?
I just have a quick question. Are these grants we're talking about, for community development and other things, are they competitive?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the CDBG funds is the like the funds coming from like HUD or.
It's federal dollars passed through the state.
Oh,
So you have to adhere to the federal objectives.
Okay, just because through housing counseling, there's lots of like CDBG like webinars and like free things. So I'm not sure if anybody has checked those out. They have a lot of like good resources. I'm not involved with any of those specifically, but we do have a program that we do through AHC for the rehab and repair. And they definitely have like similar, they want to see below 80%, ideally below 60%. If there's specific categories of clients that, inhabit those types of properties, like if individuals with disabilities or elderly, things like that, they definitely favor and give lots more points for that. And then just a point about like the 60%, 50%, I think that's definitely a good goal to have, because not a lot of people maybe go that that low, and it's definitely more of the market that like maybe myself or like Habitat United Way would see, and that do need help. There's not a lot out there in that price range. I mean, I was just looking up like the HUD county information. I believe like a household of 3 at 60% for Ontario County was like $41,000. And I would say like for my clients that I would see, like that's a good amount of income. Like that's more than like what other clients that I have definitely make, or if they're just on Social Security and other benefits. So
yeah, that's something too that we might be able to ask the senator. I've always had really good experience in getting agency staff to come out and give technical, some kind of technical overview of the programs that are available. And so the senator might be able to tap somebody from Office of Community Renewal at New York State and the Affordable Housing Corporation. Those would be two great organizations to hear from. And they've got field staff in Rochester typically, so.
I think that's a good idea. I wrote that one down, Matt. And for Sarah, my Rotary Club does a lot of work with Wilson Commencement Park. And Wednesday, I actually sat with a woman who handles the housing portion of what they do. And it's really quite impressive, of what she had to say about how it brings everything together, how all of you would work at bringing this together and making it a success. And certainly that's an example of a Pathstone success story, I think.
Yeah, we have
those are-
Thompson, I think right in Canandaigua as well. That's one of our properties as well.
Yep.
And I don't know the development side of our agency as well, but we definitely have a very robust real
Well,
estate.
it was interesting, and the critical factor is the case management. So all of you, Brenda, Sarah Nash, Jackie, I met your dad last week, and Carrie. I mean, all of you are a key element in making this work. And the nice thing about it is you're a key element, but you're low key. And I think that's what we need when we come to the town board.
And you guys were talking about having a business or some sort of thing on the bottom. I mean, we, in our own kind of like housing consortium groups, we were even just talking about, it would be great to have all of our housing services right in one place, or have like office hours. So offering that type of kind of right at your door service, like we would love that. So as kind of like a suggestion of like, you know, bringing services in to where they're at, you know, we would love that. We would love.
I know that's and the people I met, and I can't remember the name of the company, but that had housing, that had case management on site, and it wasn't a nonprofit organization, it was a builder. They had an office and one person that was available to guide, answer questions, act as an intermediary, etc. And you know, I can envision that, but that's the key there is convincing a developer that this would be important to the success of their project.
Or I was previously at Urban League of Rochester, and they own development properties in Rochester and around the greater Rochester area as well. And they have like a community space set up. So that was part of like the building process that they did. So, you know, maybe something like that, where there's like a community center, community space where we don't necessarily, you know, set up house, but, you know, have certain times, certain like office hours where certain groups and certain agencies would be available to the people that live there. They can just go downstairs.
That's a good idea. They call that thinking outside the box. That's one of my favorite expressions. Okay, anybody else? Anything else? Matt, we can get together and work on something. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, Karen, I would just make a comment is, you know, you think outside the box. I don't even have a box. Let's just go there. Throw the box away. But my only comment is the 50 to 60%. I would like to see how that compares to the Alice data for the makeup of the family. If you're talking for a family of 3, family of 4, I mean, even one adult and one with a child and childcare, total household survival budget is 48,000. So I just would like to look at the numbers and see how that's comparable.
And I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jackie Lytle. I'm with Happiness House. So we've got some space that we are continually looking at what comes next. Same topics that this group has talked about. So thank you, Karen, for including me, because I'd really like to see how this evolves. We certainly need more affordable housing. And as we look to whether it's ESHI, block grants, whatever the case may be, I think it will take a community and collective thinking to bring some good solutions. So thank you.
Karen, I also wanted to just mention, Nash brought up single family home ownership earlier. And obviously, I know it's something that you guys have talked about in the past, and it's something that, you know, there's portions of Uptown in the form-based code, the mixed-use sub-area, where that would fit in very well. One of the projects that we have currently from a development standpoint project that is kind of working its way and coming together, it's almost like a hybrid model of that, where the owner of the land wishes to continue to own the land and the infrastructure, and the individuals would actually own the home, a modular construction. And so one of the things I just wanted to mention is as we continue to hear from some of our developers about any number of new and unique ways to kind of come about this, just thinking about that, if that may be something that may fit within what this group is looking for and those types of things also. One of the things I'm finding is a lot of the landowners don't want to give up the land. They want to continue to own the land for the residual income for the future. So.
Would that mean that the tenants or like the homeowners, I guess, on that land, would they still be paying lot rent to them?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay.
Exactly.
And I've read about communities like that, particularly, I think it was in Western Texas or maybe New Mexico and Arizona, that did just exactly that, Doug. They owned the land and modular units were brought in and were permanently placed on the land, and the owners paid a lot rent. But I heard the presentation that they gave, and they were real hesitant about the cost of living there. And I wasn't really sure if it was going to be qualified as affordable housing.
Well, I think one of the things that's been happening on that particular project, we're talking about Uptown Landing, which is the 100 acres that is directly adjacent to Blue Heron Park. I think one of the things when they did their original presentation, and remember, they were really there kind of introducing the concept and seeing whether or not the form-based code was going to pass or whether or not they were going to have to go the route of mixed-use overlay. And now that the form-based code is passed, they know that they can go that route. One of the things that they're doing is they're still refining, I would say, their proposal and concept and a variety of different components on what that may look like. And now it sounds like there's multiple developers involved in that one particular 100-acre block of property that'll probably be kind of like carved out into different pieces, one of which pieces would probably be this single family piece that we're talking about, another piece being flex space with some sort of apartments, condos, another piece being some sort of mixed use residential, and different owners for the different pieces. And I think that's what we're going to find even with some of the other larger land, where you've got the landowner doesn't necessarily want to take on a massive project like this, but in an entity as a whole, but would be an equity participant in a piece of it as it continues to develop.
I was going to mention, I actually have a colleague at Pastone, and he literally, his position is manufactured housing cooperative program. So he's like looking for communities in New York State that would want to like have a cooperative of manufactured properties. You can maybe link them for the next meeting, or maybe just kind of let them know that we'd like maybe some more information about it. I will say that from some of the clients that I do have right now that are looking to purchase manufactured property, the prices have gone up significantly. You might as well buy a new home or a decently priced new home to you. And also they're on pretty significant back order, just because manufacturing was slow, materials are backed up as well. So that's the only kind of insight that I have about kind of how it's currently going with the manufactured properties.
So Doug, does the town of Canandaigua allow mobile home parks?
Yes, so we currently have 3 off the top of my head mobile home parks in the town of Canandaigua. We have a specific zoning for mobile home parks. These units that I'm talking about are not your traditional mobile homes that you would see.
No,
that
I know.
These are actually modulars that are then, they're trucked in, picked up, and then set on a foundation, and they're what they call ground set. A little bit different than the standard mobile home that you would think about, whether it's single wide, double wide, those sorts of things. But we do currently have 3 manufactured housing developments in the town of Canandaigua, mobile home parks that 2 of them are looking to do something different. One of them I just had a conversation recently with is looking to expand and double in size.
Yeah, and I've been to like webinars on how to like present like the new manufactured properties to clients, because they really they look just like regular homes. So they even had like a side by side, picture of a stick built versus a manufactured, and they're like, guess which one is a manufactured, because they're really just they're different than what you think of as like the 70s trailer.
Okay, so we lost Matt. He's gone. And I think it's 2 o'clock, and I think we've kind of beaten this up really good today. So I'll put something together for the town board meeting on the 10th, Doug. And hopefully Matt can help me. But it's time. It's really time to go to them and let them know that, hey, we're alive, and we're doing some great work, and we have some really good ideas, and moving forward.
Mhm.
So I want questions for Senator Helming, and any input you want to give me for the town board. And my email address is on that long thing that Sarah sends out every month.
Do we have another meeting date set? I just want to make sure it's on my calendar.
It's always the 3rd Friday of the month at 1 o'clock.
Perfect.
So I don't have a calendar available right now. Yes, here it is.
January 21st.
January 21st. Okay.
Thank you. With that said, let's sign off, everyone. Thank you for coming. Have a very Merry Christmas. I appreciate
Jackie.
it.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.